All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another day of SaberSim's DFS office hours. It is Friday, June 9th of 2023 here. Last show of the week. For those of you who tune in regularly, you guys know this show is Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern. So if you guys have any questions about any sports happening over the weekend here, want to get a question answered that's been on your mind prior to Monday, today is the day to get those questions in, to get those questions answered. But for those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Andrew. I'm one of the coaches over here at SaberSim. This is a show where we go over how to use the SaberSim app, answer any and all DFS related questions. Questions can come in from support. You can reach us support@sabersim.com. You can post questions live in the YouTube chat, and you can also post questions in the office hours channel in our Discord server. If you're not in our Discord, there's a link in the description below to get joined up. And if you want to try out SaberSim, not joined up with us, we also have a 7-day no strings attached free trial. You can find details to that in the description as well. But with that being said, just looking ahead to today and actually through the weekend here, we have a 13-game MLB main slate today. We have game 4 of the NBA Finals tonight. We have golf showdown all weekend. We have NHL on Saturday, MMA on Saturday, League of Legends through the weekend here, NASCAR on Sunday, and then we have tennis. I don't know what the word is. Tossing off maybe on early Monday morning. So one of the great reasons to join us, check us out. I like to tell people, make sure that starting your trial, going into the weekend is always great. You get so much DFS action here. But with that being said, gonna get the app pulled up, and looks like we have just one question here to get us going today. So if anybody has any questions, now is a great time to get those in. But gonna hit this first one here. That is a MMA question, which is great. So this one came in the office hour channel. Question says, on DraftKings MMA, after you have produced the lineups, can you tell me what the difference between MMA Sim Diversity 10 and MMA Default is? Which is the better selection for MMA? Also, when looking at past MMA fights, will there in the future be an actual score selection after the fight? So I'm going to answer the second part first. So to answer the second part of this question, I think the answer here is yes. We would like to have actual scores for all of the sports that we offer here. Usually this comes down to like a data provider thing. So we have actual scores for MLB, for NBA, for some other sports as well here. I don't know why specifically we do not have it for MMA, but I will take that back to the team as a feature request to let the team know that people are asking for that. So if we can find that data, we will get it here in the app for you. And then getting back to the first part of this question, talking about the different sorting metrics for MMA. So this is a really good question. Gonna pull up MMA, but we'll see if we have projections for today or for tomorrow's slate, which it looks like we do. Minus a couple of fights here. We're still waiting on like some odds data or something like that. But let's just run a build and let's talk about the different sorting metrics for this fight coming up. So going to run it on default settings here. And first thing that you're going to want to just know for the sorting metrics here, which is this is going to come really into play here, is is the build you're running on Sim Diversity 10 or not. So that is a key thing to think about when deciding what sorting metric to use here. So they're going to run this build. All right, so catching up, I actually had to reach out to some members of the team here to help me get an answer to this question here, but just catching up. But anyways, this build just finished here. What you're going to see here is that if you click on the SaberScore sorting metrics, there are two different sorting metrics for SaberScore. There's MMA Sim Diversity 10, and then there's MMA Default here. So if you click on the formula for Sim Diversity 10, you're going to see that we are weighting sim optimals as a variable here, along with average projection, along with negative weight on average adjusted ownership. If you click on the MMA default here, we are not including sim optimals as a variable here. We are including average projection, 99th percentile, and a negative weight on average adjusted own. And the reason for that is that because sometimes when you're playing some of this smaller field stuff, you're playing a single entry, 100 to 1K entries. What the builder is telling you is that, hey, this field is so small that you might not, there's a very good chance you're not going to need the optimal to win. You're just going to need a high scoring lineup to win. But this single entry, 100 to 1K entrance is a lot different than playing a 150 max with, 10 to 50K entrance, right? Which is like usually what we see the flagships for MMA be. And in this scenario, you do want to build on Sim Diversity 10, taking these single slate optimals here. And then also, we will see that we have correlation at 2. This isn't going to come into effect here unless allow opposing fighters is turned on. So what you're going to notice is that, any 2 opponents here, let's look at Maria Oliveira and Diana Belpita here. So Maria Oliveira, if we're actually not going to have correlation data, it looks like, but you could just know that 2 opposing fighters are going to be negatively correlated. But when you have really small cards, maybe like an 8-fight card or something, if you have 2 wrestle heavy opponents, you might be able to get away with playing them both in the same lineup. So when allow opposing fighters is on, the correlation value matters. When allow opposing fighters is off, it does not matter what correlation is set to. It's not going to have an effect because fighters are only correlated to their opponents. So don't get super confused with correlation being at 2. It's essentially at 0 unless allow opposing fighters is on. But getting back to the question here. So the reason that we have these 2 different metrics is because you cannot use the MMA Sim Diversity 10 metric when Sim Diversity is not 10. So that's why it's specifically called that. If you run a build at Sim Diversity 10, what you're going to notice is that you're going to have this Sim Optimal summary statistic at the bottom of your builds here. If you run any build on Sim Diversity 9, Sim Diversity 8, there's not going to be a Sim Optimal summary statistic there. So therefore that sorting metric is just not good for that type of build here, right? So that's basically why we have 2 here. We have our Sim Diversity 10, we have our MMA Default. They are just for different types of contests. The only one thing I did notice here is that at this Sim Diversity 10 build that we ran, the builder did default to Saber Score Default here instead of MMA Sim Diversity 10. So that just looks like a mistake to me. So I'm going to make a note for myself where Sim Diversity 10 MMA builds not defaulting to SD10 Saber Score. And I'll make sure to bring that up to the team. But I think that, if your Sim Diversity is on 10, you should be using the Sim Diversity 10 metric. And then if you are playing a smaller field where Sim Diversity is 9 or 8, etc., use the MMA Default. I think that is the overarching, answer to the question here and what you really need to take away. All right, good question there. We are going to jump over to the YouTube chat. I see a lot of people rolling in here. Hello, everybody. Hope you guys are having a happy Friday here. We are through with questions in the Discord. No questions in the support channel. So if anybody has any questions, now is a great time to get those in here. So going to hit this comment from Ryan. Ryan said, love grinding MLB in September, October. Sabersim model and builder just as powerful and enjoy MLB going under the radar during that time. Yeah, Ryan, not there yet. I would hate for MLB season to be over tomorrow. So I'm going to enjoy, summer baseball while it is here. All right. Next question from Noah. Noah said, for NBA Showdown, I forgot what this best Sim Diversity is. In a 20 max, would the number 20 lineup be similar to number 1 in the list? Okay. So I forgot what the best Sim Diversity is. So the best Sim Diversity is going to be whatever the defaults are, right? If you are building NBA Showdown lineups here, I would just stick with the defaults. And I'm pretty positive that all the defaults here are going to be 0 correlation, 10 Sim Diversity, where basically we are just taking single game optimals here, single slate optimals, but there's only 1 game on the slate, right? So single slate optimal, simming this game out one time to build each individual lineup here. So I wouldn't stray too far from the defaults. I do not think you need to come in here and make manual adjustments to your sim diversity. And then second question, in a 20 max, would the number 20 line be similar to number 1 in the list? So no, right? So if we have a pool of thousands and thousands of sims, right? And we are going to go and pluck one from the builder here and use the scores that those players scored in that individual game to figure out what the highest scoring construction is, and then give you that lineup, right? And then we are going to do that every single time. So if you request 500 lineups, we're going to do that 500 times, right? So we are never going to pull the same game sim. And so that is why your number 1 lineup would not look similar to your number 20, right? Maybe there are some general trends about the game overall here, which is where you're going to get these sim optimals coming into effect, where the same lineup construction was optimal for more than one build, and then we will just tally that, right? So that's why you might see some lineups with sim optimal 10. That means that that specific construction, when we were iterating through the sims to build your lineups, that construction came up 10 different times, right? So that's where Saber Score takes that part into account. But I wouldn't expect, your number 1 lineup to have all 5 players, or your number 1 lineup versus your number 20, and your number 20 has all the same 5 players and then just one swap to like some low projected player, right? That's probably what you're going to find using a traditional optimizer, where it's optimizing based on projected points here. But I would not expect you to get outputs like that using SaberSim. All right. Noah said, is the 95th percentile line similar to 90th for NBA Showdown? I have to imagine so. So basically, when thinking about lineup percentiles, right, the way to think about it is that we have these individual player percentiles, right? So this basically tells you what score this player achieves a certain percentage of the time, right? So Nikola Jokic's 99th percentile here, and these are based on his utility stats, not his 1.5x captain projections here. But what we're saying is his 99th percentile is 93.3 points. So that is the score that he achieves 1% of the time in the sims. And then 95th percentile would be 85.8 here. So what we're saying is, hey, Nikola Jokic scores 85.8 fantasy points 5% of the time, right? And then it goes down to 85th. So if you're trying to estimate what his 90th percentile is, probably just take an average of 78 and 85.8. So that's like 7.8 points. So you could say like 4. So his 90th percentile is probably somewhere around a high 81.8, 81.9, something like that. So you could use that to estimate if you need to. All right. Question from Sammy. Sammy said, how do you build a winning NBA lineup? So this is a great question, right? And if you are looking for a video walking through how to build lineups for your NBA Showdown contests here in the playoffs, then I'm going to have to direct you to our YouTube channel, which I am just pulling up really quickly here. And on our channel, if you go over to playlists, you go down to how to beat NBA DFS in 2022. This is for the 2022-2023 season. You go to view full playlist. And then this recent video, we released this video 7 days ago ahead of the NBA Finals. It says, crush the 2023 NBA Finals with SaberSim. It is a 10-minute video of Jordan walking through his NBA Showdown strategy here and talking about building winning lineups here. So check out this video. It'll be a great place for you to start. All right, going to get SaberSim pulled back up. Next question from Brad. Brad said, the pro video with Chris got a little confusing when they were going over applying min uniques. What value/ranking method would you recommend paying attention to as you increase the number? So this is a good question here. I've actually only gotten about like halfway through this video here. So I've heard the beginning about, contest selection and talking about weather. I have not finished it yet, so I'm working on finishing it. So I haven't got to the part where they talk about min uniques here, but I'm going to just go ahead and answer your question here. The second part of it says, what value/ranking method would you recommend paying attention to as you increase the number of min uniques here? So this question, is answered differently by different team members here. I answer this different than Jordan answers it. I'm sure Chris had his own thoughts about it here. So really what that tells me is that, there's not one right answer. Similarly to, there are a lot of paths to victory, right? Not everybody is taking the same road. Some people are going left and finding a path that way. Some people are going right and finding a path that way, right? So a lot of roads to the same place here. Just depends the way that makes the most sense to you about how to get there, right? So I think that's what this question really comes down to. And for me, right? So we're building these MLB lineups here, and we're going to get into the post build, and then we'll start talking about this. So let's say that I'm building 20 lineups. I requested a pool of 500 lineups here, and what I like to do is play on DraftKings. What I like to do is I like to count how many players are in my lineup, and I like to default this to 50% of my lineup to be unique. This is just something that I've been comfortable with overall here. The reason I like to do half is because I like to make changes myself here to team stacks, to individual batters, and maxing out mini uniques, usually doesn't give you so much wiggle room here. So we did a segment, I believe last week, that went out in our newsletter talking about, hey, if you're new to MLB and you don't have a lot of opinions and you don't know a lot about MLB strategy here, I think maxing out mini uniques, getting as diverse as you possibly can with your lineups is a great strategy, right? I think this is a great strategy for anybody new to MLB. But let's say that you're not new to MLB. You have ideas about what you want to do. You have a pretty sound strategy that you've proven to be profitable, right? So for me, that's kind of the bucket that I fall under. So I like to set mini uniques to 5 here because this gives me a lot more wiggle room as to further adjustments that I want to make. As you can see, at mini uniques of 5, I'm only at lineup 35 out of my entire pool. So I'm still in the top, 5% of my pool here. When I'm maxed out on mini uniques, and I'm on mini uniques, 8, maybe mini uniques 9 here, maybe. So at 9, we run out of lineups here. We only have 18 available. But when I'm maxed out, if I go to make any further changes, well, now I'm not going to have as much wiggle room, right? I'm probably going to run out of lineups pretty quickly here. So let's say that I only wanted to play 5 stacks, right? And I'm not saying this is something I do, but let's just say, I only wanted to play 5 stacks. Okay, we're going further down in our pool. Great. Maybe, this looks pretty good. We're very, very flat here on our hitters. I want to go look at our pitchers here, getting some exposure to Ohtani. Maybe I want to take a stand somewhere, right? Maybe it's like, hey, I actually think Ohtani is the best pitcher on the slate. I want him in 100% of my lineups or something like that. So boom, I run into this unable to meet exposures message pretty quickly here, right? So then it's at this point that what I suggest to users who like to max out their mini uniques is to decide what's more important to you, the 8 mini uniques that you've set or the 100% Ohtani exposure. And if the 8 mini uniques is more important, lower Ohtani. It's the builder's telling you that, hey, I can only give you 45% of Shohei Ohtani exposure. So then you would change your min exposure down to 45, and then this message would go away, right? So that's one option. Option 2 is like, you know what? No, I really want my Ohtani exposure. So then the other option at that point would be to lower your min uniques and then see if the builder can meet you halfway. So the builder went from 45% and said, hey, at 7 min uniques, I can give you 75 Ohtani. And then you have to make another decision, right? But you're like, nope, I definitely want 100%. So then you have to keep lowering this number, right? And then now we're down at 6. And we see where we're at in our pool. We're at lineup 394. I think that's okay because you make this big jump from 394 to 287, right? So you only have one lineup in this 300 range here. So this process is really like a give and take, right? Do you want this or do you want that, right? And you kind of have to make these decisions along the way. I don't like to do this every single time, run into this error message, lower my mini uniques. So just by playing over and over, I've learned that for my process, just going to 5 and being happy with 5 gives me enough wiggle room. I don't run into these issues. I'm able to make the adjustments that I want because I'm usually making a handful. I like to say like 3 to 5 value adds here is probably the most here. I don't like to really go beyond that. but that number works for me, right? So this is very process dependent. It depends what type of player you are, what your goals are here. One thing Chris talked about is being very particular with understanding, who my competition is, what contests I'm playing here. So for me, these are things that are factored into my process. But it's great to hear from all these different people, right? You hear from me on this show, you hear from Jordan, Chris, Scott, Matt about their processes, right? So take it all in, take tidbits from everybody, and then figure out what you want to do with your own process, right? And listen to everybody and create your own process from all of these different things that you hear is the best advice I could give here. So Brad, if you have any more questions, happy to talk about that further. All right, continuing to roll here. Noah said, also for MMA, how do you get a good mix of fighters but still have positive EV looking lines? I don't like having big dogs, but worried about not having unique lineups. So this is like a pretty tough question to answer, right? What might pass the eye test for you is going to be different than what might pass the eye test for me, right? Maybe you're looking at salaries, maybe you're looking at some projection, but then maybe I'm looking at ownership, right? So like what stands out to me about this top lineup is that there is no fighter under 30% here, right? So this looks like to me like a lineup that might be highly duplicated, right? But see, I have my custom geo mean statistic here. So then I can go and see like, hey, if I sort by geo mean highest to lowest, that is still pretty high up here, right? We're talking about, it was a sim optimals 5. This is the 15th highest ranked geo mean lineup in my pool. I bet you that if I did some type of geo mean rule here where or a geo mean filter rather, where I, calculated a number of projected dupes that I wanted to stay under, I might get rid of a lot of these lineups here up at the top, right, of the geo mean. And that's probably what I want to do anyways, right? So be careful. It's very particular. Positive EV lineups, like our Saber scores are designed to be an approximation of EV. Like if you were to run this slate out, thousands and thousands of times, we are saying that, these lineups will win the most money on average over that time, right? So it's important to value the Saber score, in my opinion. That's also why I don't like having so much many uniques, going back to the baseball example. But it's important to understand, what lineups have a high win probability. Also understand that Saber Sim is not estimating dupes here. We are not doing anything for duplication risk. So that is where, I do think it's important for users to come in and make some manual adjustments to possibly account for that, right? Whether that is some type of salary restriction, whether that is a geometric mean filter or rule, right? So there are things that you can do to make your lineups less likely to be duplicated here. And there was actually a conversation earlier today where it looked like a couple people were a little bit on a different page here, just about geometric mean and duplication in general here. So I think Jordan summarized this well specifically for NBA Showdown, but I think it applies here as well. So he said, my general stance on NBA Showdown is that seeking perfectly unique lineups is unlikely to be profitable, but there are profitable ways to avoid playing the lineups expected to be the most heavily duplicated lineups in the contest here. So I definitely agree with that sentiment here. And, you have to find this balance between uniqueness and win probability and figure out, which way you're willing to sacrifice and find the best middle ground for those two specific aspects of your lineup. All right. Nasty Drew guy says, is there a general rule that you could use in Saber Sim that you can use for any baseball slate, or is there any metric that you can use? Yeah. So it sounds like a similar question to the one from yesterday here. So I gave my thoughts on that yesterday. I know you posted the question early here. If you missed it, I'll just go over it one more time here. So one rule that I personally use that we suggest users use often is this rule to curate your one-offs, right? So basically what you're saying is if at least one player on a team has a home run expectation, less than 0.1, then use exactly 2 players from the same team here. So what you're saying is like, hey, if a guy is very unlikely to hit a home run, I want to make sure that he's used in a stack here. And the thinking behind this is that, players who are used as a one-off in a 5-2-1 lineup or a 5-1-1-1 lineup, if they have the ability to score a lot of fantasy points, even when their team does not do good overall here, those are kind of the players that you want to target here, as opposed to the guys that need to get a hit, get on base, somebody else hits them in and they score a run that way, or they're getting points from RBIs, hitting other players on their team in, right? You'd probably want more players from that team, right? So writing this rule to stay away from those specific type of players as one-offs and favor more of the players who have the ability to get there alone when their team does bad, like the Pete Alonsos, these power hitters, is a general good MLB rule here that I think is worth using. Okay. Brad said, appreciate the answer. Yeah, man, happy to help out. Follow up from the answers you guys said. I got that one yesterday. I just thought if there was another one besides the geomean and that one. So I do not use any geomean for MLB. I think that, you don't need to use it for like these big classic slates here. I wouldn't worry too much about it. There are just so many lineups that you can build. I would only use a geometric mean rule probably for a single game in general here. But aside from that, if you wanted to make like a stacking rule, I think you could do that. Maybe make a blanket stacking rule where it's like at least 4 players from one team. That way, the primary stack in all of your lineups here is at least a 4 stack. But aside from that, SaberSim is really doing a bulk of the work here for you. We understand correlation. We're using upside correlation. So what that means is, we don't care how the other players in the Yankees lineup do when Aaron Judge goes 0-4, right? Aaron Judge's correlation to the players on his team when he goes 0-4 is irrelevant to us. It does not matter. We care how the other players in the lineup do when Aaron Judge goes 3-for-5 with 2 doubles, right? Or has these big fantasy point games. Then we want to know how he does with the other players in his lineup, right? So just our understanding of correlation on a player by player level here, our understanding of range of outcomes for players is just doing so much for your MLB lineups that a simple rule just cannot encapsulate. So I always like to say use rules sparingly, use rules very specifically for specific reasons, for specific situations, but you do not need, a bunch of rules to be profitable in MLB DFS with SaberSim specifically here. Okay. Next question here from Noah. Noah said, is hockey the same as NBA in terms of showdown, pulling players, season-long info versus the playoffs/finals? Feel like some guys have come on as of late, but don't get the best sim numbers. So yes, so our decay rates are going to be like similar here. We are going to weight recent data more, and then we are going to weight data over the course of the season, over the course of these players' career at a lesser rate on a sliding scale here. But that data is still taken into account. So I think that it is totally fine to get dirty and adjust projections here in the NHL playoffs for your lineups. Michael said, thanks for giving me help on that late swap Angels issue. Think I got it to work last night. Awesome, man. Congratulations. Glad you are able to put that into practice. So thanks for the feedback. Okay. Out to Lunchable said, I hope I don't sound conspiritual, but why is it that when I go back to SaberSim the next day and check the actual scores, I see higher winning scores there that are not in my FanDuel lineups? So this is probably just a misunderstanding here. So let's say I go back to yesterday, right? And I'm going to go back to a build that I ran for the main slate here. And then I'm going to go back to this build here. So when I go into this build, what's going to happen is that one, so on the home screen, first and foremost, we are going to have the actual scores loaded here, right? So you can see the actual scores. And then if you come into this and you go straight to sorting by actual scores, what the builder is going to do is it is going to look at your entire pool of 5,000 lineups and sort them by highest score to lowest score, right? So even if you didn't play this lineup, it's going to show up here, right? So what you need to do is you need to come in here and click the lineup file that you use to fill your lineups. So the way that you check that is in the entries tab in your CSV, it'll say, you know, contest, and then it'll say the lineup set that you used. So what you have to do is click this drop down, click the lineup set that you used. It will grab those 20 lineups or however many lineups it is, separate those from the rest of your pool, and then show you the highest scoring lineups in that set. And then you can see that review mode gets turned on, right? So once you click this set, and what review mode does is it separates your lineups from the lineups in your pool. So then now that this lineup set is selected, when you click over to the pool, these lineups that scored higher than are grayed out. So what this is saying is like, hey, this is my actual score, my highest actual scoring lineup, but this lineup was not in my set of 20. So then I get scroll down here and then see what highest scoring lineup was the first one in my set here. And looks like we had to go pretty far down, probably just because this lineup was made so early in the day ahead of starting lineups, etc. here. So I don't know where our first highest actual scoring lineup is, but basically the first one that is green like this would be your highest scoring one. So if I go to the top here, maybe it'll show it. So what this is telling me is that lineup 704 is our highest scoring lineup that I played. So then I think if I go to the pool here, I should be able to go down to 704 and find that. So going a little slow. 1500 went too far. 1100. Okay, so we're in the 700s. Looks like we played some of these lineups here. Go to 704. And 711. Okay, 704. So we can see that when I go to pool, all these graded lineups are the ones I didn't play. 704 is the first lineup that I played here. And this is the rank of it, right? So I just want to make sure that those two things matched up here, which they do. So if you're sorted by actual score, you're using review mode. The rank here is the rank in this set. So this is my 704th highest scoring lineup. It looks like these other guys didn't even play. So unfortunate there, but I didn't use this set for anything. But that's probably what's going on. All right, next you guys said, and speaking of mini nicks, if you're only playing a single entry, do you have to change mini nicks because you don't need that much diversity in your lineups if you're playing one single entry? Good question here. So let's go back to today. So I think if you're playing one single lineup, using mini nicks is irrelevant here. But one thing that I've done in the past is, when I'm building like a single entry lineup, I had one ticket to like a milli maker, and then now I'm building that one lineup, and I want to be pretty meticulous with it. One thing that you can do is, look at like a set of 10 lineups here, maybe, and then look at different lineups, right? So increase your mini nicks to 5 and see what different lineups look like, what the top 10 different lineups look like with a mini nicks of 5, and then, maybe filter from this pool, right? If the reason for that is that, at mini nicks of 1, you're probably going to see a lot of the same people coming up often here, which maybe we're not seeing that here as nobody moved from 60%. But that's just one idea here. But if you're building one lineup, you do not need to adjust. Mini nicks will have no effect here. Out to Lunch will said only one like. Hey, if you can make it 2, that'd be awesome. All right. Nancy, you guys said thanks for your help. And then Out to Lunch will said, thanks a million. That was my problem. Yeah, no, happy to clarify any situation like that for you. I understand it can be a little confusing, but that's what this show's for, right? So glad you came on and asked a question, and happy to help you guys out. So looks like we are all caught up with questions at the moment here. So while I wait for any last questions to come in, just want to remind you guys that if you guys are not playing over on Owner's Box, you guys should be, right? The contest continue to overlay. There was just a message about it in the MLB channel yesterday, showing how much overlay there was really close to lock here. So take advantage of our partnership with OwnersBox here by using promo code SABER or SaberSim when you sign up. And then just by signing up, you can get access to a $500 deposit bonus. And then we will also track your entry fees, and then you can earn free months of SaberSim just by playing over on OwnersBox, and there is no limit to the amount of credit that you can earn. So each time you hit one of these entry fee thresholds, we will reach out to you, ask you if you want to claim that prize. If you do claim the prize, we will reset your tracking to 0 and reach out to you once again once you hit that threshold once more here. So take advantage of OwnersBox. The level of competition is much softer than what you're going to find on DraftKings, FanDuel, and Yahoo here. But all right, everybody, thank you guys for tuning in today. We will be right back here Monday for our next show. If anybody has any questions over the weekend, building lineups, drop it in the office hours channel. Let it sit there until Monday. That'll give us a steady queue of questions going for our next show here. But until then, enjoy your weekend. Good luck. Take care. I will see you all. Thanks. Bye.